The monster, they called her. Everyone on the outpost called her the monster. She was over 8 feet tall, with dark skin that shimmered like stone. Her eyes were glowing silver, and her long arms had claws that looked like weapons. No one ever got close to her. No one dared. The alien girl had been found during a battle on a distant moon. The soldiers said she had taken down 10 armed guards alone. She didn't use weapons, just her strength, speed, and her terrible scream. When they captured her, she didn't beg. She didn't cry. She stood still, silent, and stared at them. That silence made them fear her even more. They brought her to the human colony to keep her locked in a cage. It was made of thick metal with force fields. People came to look at her from a distance, like she was some strange animal in a zoo. Children were told to stay away. Even soldiers avoided eye contact. Some whispered that she could kill with a single look. Others believed she had no heart, just rage. She never spoke. She never made a sound. She just sat in the corner of her cage every day, her long legs folded beneath her, watching, always watching. But one man was different. His name was Micah. He worked as a repair tech at the outpost. He didn't have rank or power, just tools. And a quiet way about him. He was used to fixing broken machines, not dealing with dangerous prisoners. But something about the alien girl caught his eye. He passed her cage every day while walking to work. And every time she looked at him, not with anger, not with hate, but something else. He didn't know what it was, but it stayed with him. One day, he stopped. He stood there, just a few feet from the cage, and looked back at her. Most people turned away quickly, but he didn't. He stood there for a full minute. She didn't move. Neither did he. Then he said it, just one word, "Hello." She blinked once. That was all. Micah returned the next day, and the next. Each time he said something simple. "Hello again. Rough day? You look tired." He didn't expect answers. He just talked, even if she didn't reply. He told her about his job, about the machines that broke down, about the cold food in the colony mess hall. He began to bring small gifts. Nothing big, just things he thought she might like. A soft cloth to sit on, a tiny mirror, a smooth stone. From Earth. At first, the guards laughed at him. They called him names, said he was wasting time on a monster. But Micah didn't care. One day, he did something different. He gave her a name. Karel, he said. "I don't know your real name, but Karel means strong and still in an old Earth language. That seems right for you." She didn't react. At least, not at first. But that night, something changed. Micah returned the next morning and found something strange. On the floor of the cage, scratched lightly into the metal, was one word, Karel. The guards said it was a trick. They said someone else wrote it to mess with Micah, but he knew better. He saw the way her eyes followed him now. Not cold. Not wild but curious. Karel, it wasn't much. But it was a beginning. Still, the others didn't trust her. Rumors spread that she was planning an escape, that she would kill Micah first because he got too close. The outpost commander warned him to stay away. "She's not your friend," the commander said. "She's not like us." Micah nodded politely. But inside, he felt something growing, something he didn't expect. He wasn't afraid of her anymore. In fact, he felt safe around her. Like she saw something in him that no one else did. She had power, yes. But she also had pain. It was in her eyes, in her silence. She was alone, surrounded by fear and hate. And Micah wondered, what would happen if someone just gave her a chance? He didn't see a monster. He saw a girl trapped in a cage, waiting for someone to believe she was more than what the world had called her. And for the first time in her life, someone had the day he gave her a name, Karel. The name had no meaning to anyone else But to her, it was the first real thing in a long time. For weeks, she had listened to the human man speak to her. He never shouted. He never asked her to do tricks like the others. He didn't throw food or call her names. He simply talked. His voice was soft like calm water, and though she didn't understand every word, she understood his tone. It was the only gentle sound in a place full of fear and noise. Then came that one word, Carol. She didn't react at first. But inside, something shifted. A name. A name meant she was seen not as a weapon, not as a monster, but as someone. Micah. The human man didn't know what he had done. He had just picked a sound that felt right to him. He said it with care, like the name belonged to someone important. And then he walked away, but that night she didn't sleep. She sat on the cold floor of her cage, her long arms folded tightly across her knees. Over and over in her mind, she repeated the sound (ka single quotes rel) she had not spoken for years. Her species could speak, but after the war, silence had become her only defense. Every word hurt. Every word reminded her of loss. But now, this name echoed in her mind like a small fire trying to grow. She scratched the word into the metal floor with the tip of her claw, slow, careful, unsure. The letters were clumsy, not human-shaped, but close enough. The next morning, Micah saw it. His eyes widened. His lips parted, but he didn't speak right away. He just stared at the name. And then he smiled. It was the first time she had ever seen someone smile at her without fear. From that day, Micah stopped calling her the alien girl. To him, she was simply Carol. He said the name every time he visited, sometimes with a joke, sometimes softly. It made her sit up straighter. It made her look him in the eyes. One day, he brought a small communication tablet. He slid it through a narrow opening in the cage. It was loaded with simple language lessons, words, pictures, meanings. He didn't push it on her. He just placed it gently and said, "If you ever want to learn, this is for you." Carol didn't touch it for 2 days. But then, late one night, she picked it up. The words were strange, but not impossible. Her mind was sharp. Her species had powerful memory and fast learning skills. By the end of the week, she could understand many simple human phrases. Still, she said nothing, not yet. But when Micah said Carol, she now understood it fully. Other workers noticed the change. Some laughed behind Micah's back. "You're wasting time on a creature," they said. "She never speak. She doesn't care." But Micah didn't stop. He cleaned the area around her cage. He repaired the small heater to keep her warm. He even started sketching her, careful drawings in his notebook, not to mock her, but to remember her face. One day, while he was drawing, she reached out and tapped the glass dot just once. Micah looked up. Her silver eyes were watching him, but something was different. There was no coldness, no wall between them. He stood and walked closer. Then, in a voice dry and broken from years of silence, she said her first full word, "Micah." It wasn't perfect. The sound was strange in her throat, but it was clear. Micah didn't move for a full minute. His heart raced. He wasn't dreaming. She had spoken. She had said his name. She had chosen to speak. And she had chosen him. He whispered, "You remember my name?" She gave a slow nod, her eyes never leaving his. That moment changed everything. She wasn't just learning words, she was trusting someone. Micah told no one. He didn't want them to know. Not yet. The others would panic, report her, maybe take her away. This was their secret. A fragile bond growing slowly. From then on, their silence became stronger than any words. Micah spoke. Carol listened. Sometimes she gave tiny nods or looked away shyly. But every day, the space between them felt smaller. The outpost still saw a monster in a cage. Micah now saw something else, a soul, trying to remember how to live. Asterisk, she protected him like a shield. The first time she moved for him, it was without thought. It happened during a routine supply drop. The outpost had gone quiet, too quiet. Most workers were inside the dome shelters. A distant alarm was flashing red, but no one seemed to take it seriously until the sky lit up with plasma fire. Raiders. They came fast. Unmarked ships, no warnings, no rules, just guns, explosions, and chaos. The colony had little defense. The outer walls shook and people screamed, scattering like insects. Micah was in the maintenance yard repairing a power cell. He didn't even have time to run. A flash of energy slammed into the ground near him, sending him flying backwards. His head hit the ground, and his vision blurred. Kirill had been watching from her cage. She didn't think. She acted. With a soundless burst of force, she tore her arms forward. The energy chains crackled, but gave way, shocking her, burning her, but she didn't stop. She smashed through the cage door like it was paper. Soldiers saw her escape. They raised their weapons, but she didn't run toward them. She ran toward Micah. Another plasma bolt was coming. She saw it too fast for any human to dodge. She dove. 8 feet of solid alien strength slammed into Micah's body and covered him completely. The blast hit her square in the back. She growled. Not in pain, but in fury. Micah gasped beneath her. His head was ringing, but he knew one thing. He was alive. And the reason was lying on top of him, shielding him with her body. Kirill stood up, eyes blazing. Her long arms snapped out and knocked 2 raiders off their feet. A third tried to shoot her. She grabbed the weapon and crushed it in her hand. People who saw it screamed, "She's out! She's loose!" But Micah saw something different. She wasn't attacking at random. She wasn't raging. She was defending. She stayed close to him, always placing herself between him and the gunfire. Her body became a wall. Every time danger came near, she blocked it. Kirill didn't fight like a wild beast. She fought like a trained warrior. Her movements were fast, sharp, controlled. She didn't waste energy. She didn't hurt those who were running, only those who were firing. The raiders, confused by her presence, pulled back. One shouted into a calm, some kind of death worlder just broke loose. Within minutes, the alarm changed pitch. Backup arrived, drones hovered. Defense systems kicked in. Battle ended almost as quickly as it had started. Kirill stood over Micah, breathing hard. Her back was scorched, her skin cracked, but she didn't fall. She just looked down at him, silver eyes locked on his. Micah tried to speak. You saved me." She didn't answer. But she didn't need to. When the soldiers arrived, guns raised, she did not resist. She lifted her hands, claws open, and stepped away from Micah. Then she looked at him one last time before letting them take her. The next day, Kirill was chained again, but this time with heavier restraints, thicker walls, and more guards. Everyone was talking. They say she broke out to kill people. She must have tricked the tech. She's more dangerous than we thought. But Micah knew the truth. She didn't break out to kill. She broke out to save. He tried to tell them. He reported everything. She stopped the raiders. She covered me. She didn't hurt anyone unless they attacked first. But they didn't believe him. She's an alien weapon, the commander said. Don't confuse instincts with emotion. But Micah had seen her eyes. He had felt the weight of her body shielding his. That wasn't instinct. That was choice. And something had changed between them. After the attack, Micah visited her again. Cage was darker now. No window. Just a single chair behind layers of force field. She was kneeling, head low, silent. He stepped close and whispered, "Why did you do it?" For a long moment, she didn't move. Then softly, almost broken, "You are kind." Just 3 words. Quiet, honest. Micah felt his chest tighten. No one had ever described him like that before. And now, the one everyone called a monster had, that night, he couldn't sleep, because deep in the colony, behind steel and lights and fear, someone no one dared to care for had risked her life for him, not because she was forced, but because she wanted to. Asterisk. He touched her face. It had never happened before. No one had ever touched her with kindness. People had struck her. Guards had poked her with weapons. Scientists had pushed her, scanned her, chained her, but no one had ever reached out gently. Until Micah. Days after the raid, she was moved to a deeper cell. No windows, no visitors allowed. But Micah found a way. He told them he was doing maintenance on the power core nearby. They didn't question it. No one cared about her anymore, only that she stayed locked up. He waited until the night shift, when the guards were lazy and half asleep. Then he stood in front of her cage again. Carole was sitting quietly, eyes closed, her breathing slow. Her body was covered in fresh scars, some from the plasma blast, others from the new chains. She didn't look up at first. She thought he wouldn't come back, that he would be like the rest, afraid, or worse, ashamed. But he had come back, and he stood there, silent, for a long moment. When she finally looked up, something was different in her eyes. They weren't just watching him. They were searching for something. Micah stepped closer, just enough to be seen clearly. "You saved me," he said again, "and they put you back in a cage." She didn't answer. She only lowered her head. Micah felt his chest grow heavy. She had done everything right. She had protected the colony. She had risked her life. And they treated her like she was still a monster. He whispered, "This isn't fair." Then slowly, without fear, he raised his hand. She watched it, carefully. Her body didn't move, but her eyes did. They followed every inch of his hand as it hovered near the glass wall between them. He pressed his palm gently to the surface. She didn't copy the motion. "Not yet." Then he spoke softly. "You're not a creature. You're not dangerous. You're not alone." Her chest rose with a slow breath. Then, almost unsure, she lifted her own hand and placed it, clawed, scarred, and trembling, on the other side of the glass, right over his. The moment held still. 2 worlds. 2 beings. 2 lives. Touching without touch. Micah's voice shook. "You're more human than most people I know." And for the first time since he had known her, something shifted in her face. A softness. A sadness. And something else, something he wasn't ready to name. She moved closer. Closer. And then, in a slow, cautious motion, she pressed the side of her face to the glass. It was like she was offering him a secret, a moment no one else would ever see. Micah's hand moved, sliding gently along the surface until it rested near her cheek. It wasn't real touch. Not yet. But in that moment, it felt like it. He closed his eyes. So did she. Neither of them said a word, but everything had changed. The next day, the colony began preparing to transfer her to an off-world prison. They said she was too risky to keep on base. They didn't care what she had done for them. They only saw what she could do, and it scared them, Micah argued. He spoke to his supervisor. He filed reports. No one listened. "She's too strong," they said. "Too unknown." He went to her one last time before the transport arrived. She was already cuffed, already guarded. He walked up quietly. The guards allowed him a minute, but only from a distance. Micah stared at her, his heart racing. "Can't stop them?" he whispered. She looked at him, not with anger, not with fear, just understanding. Then he asked, almost broken, "Do you want to go?" Her voice came low, rough. "No." He swallowed hard. "Then I won't let them take you." She shook her head slightly. They will. Micah stepped closer. The guards tensed, but didn't move. He reached his hand through a small opening in the holding barrier. Carol leaned forward, and for the first time, without glass between them, Micah touched her face. Her skin was cool, like stone warmed by moonlight, but soft. So soft, he let his fingers trace the edge of her jaw, his thumb resting near her cheek. You feel real, he whispered. I am, she replied, a simple truth. But it shook him. That night, Micah made his decision. He wouldn't let her be taken, not by force, not by fear. He was done watching from behind glass. Next time, he would stand beside her. They tried to separate them. They thought they could break the bond by distance. They thought if they sent her away, the strange connection between her and the human would disappear like a dream. But they didn't understand what had already begun. When the order came, it was final. Carell was to be transferred to Red Dusk Station, a prison floating on the edge of a dying sun. No visitors. No return. It was the place where dangerous beings were sent to be forgotten. Micah read the notice with shaking hands. The file was cold and official. Her name wasn't even listed. Just a number, a code. As if she were cargo, he stood in the command room, his voice low but firm. She saved lives. She stopped the raiders. She hasn't hurt anyone here. The commander didn't even look up. She's not human. She's a risk. She's not a risk, Micah snapped. She's someone. That word made the room go quiet. Someone. Not something. The others shifted in their seats. A few stared at Micah like he had lost his mind. A few looked away in silence, uncomfortable with the truth. She's formed an attachment to you. The science officer said finally. That alone is dangerous. To who? Micah asked. To her or to you? No one answered. Back in her cell, Carell already knew. She heard the engine starting. She heard the soldiers whispering about Red Dusk. She didn't cry. She didn't fight. She just sat there, silent as always. But inside, something was breaking. Micah came to her once more before the ship arrived. He stood close, gripping the bars, like they might melt in his hands. They're taking you tomorrow, he said. I tried everything. She stared at him. Then asked softly, Will you forget me? His breath caught in his throat. No, he said. Never. That was all. She needed to hear. She moved forward, close enough that their foreheads almost touched through the barrier. Her voice was just a whisper. Then I will come back. Micah shook his head. No, I'm not letting you go alone. Carell looked confused. You can't stop them. I'm not going to stop them, he said. I'm going with you. She blinked slowly. You will be jailed. He smiled, sad but sure. Then I'll be where you are. That night, he packed nothing. Just took the stolen codes he had copied, the access key from his tech station, and a plan forming in his mind. As the colony slept, Micah walked through quiet halls toward the holding bay. His heart was pounding. Not from fear, but from certainty. He reached her cell, disabled the guards, shut off the cameras. Carell looked up as he entered. He held out his hand. Now or never. For the first time, her lips curved into something like a smile. Not wide, but real. She took his hand. They ran. Not wild, not loud, but smart. Micah had studied the schedules. He had memorized the patrols. They slipped past walls and security zones. Like shadows, Carol's body blocked scanners. Her senses were sharp. She guided him through blind corners and kept him safe every step. When they reached the launch dock, alarms blared. Micah shoved the code into the control panel. The ship opened. Get in, he said. But she turned to face the guards rushing in behind them. Micah froze. Carell, no. She looked at him calmly. I won't leave you behind." Together, they fought not to kill, but to escape. Carol didn't strike unless she had to. Micah used stunners to slow the guards down. They moved like a single unit, protecting, trusting. When the hatch finally closed behind them, Micah launched the ship. As they broke through the planet's orbit, silence filled the small cockpit. They had done it. They had left everything behind. Micah turned to her, breathless. She was sitting in the corner, watching the stars rush by. Free. Finally free. And beside her, someone who had chosen her, not because she was strong, not because she was different, but because she was Carol. Asterisk. Their escape across the stars. They weren't running toward a destination. They were running toward a chance. The stars outside their small ship were endless. A river of light and darkness stretched across the black. It was beautiful and terrifying. No one was chasing them yet, but they both knew it wouldn't last. The outpost had lost a prisoner and a human technician. They would be hunted. Still, Micah wasn't afraid. Not anymore. He had made his choice. Carol sat beside him in silence, strapped into a seat that barely fit her tall frame. Her knees were pulled up slightly, her head low. She hadn't spoken since they left the outpost. But her eyes were not empty. They were watching everything. The stars. The ship, Micah reached over and flicked on the manual controls. "We're off grid now. They won't track us unless we transmit." Carol didn't respond. He looked at her gently. "You okay?" A pause. Then, "You left your home? For me?" Micah smiled faintly. "It stopped feeling like home a long time ago." They drifted in silence for a while. The ship was quiet, except for the low hum of the engine. It wasn't made for long travel, just a short-range cargo carrier. But it was enough for now. Micah opened the small storage compartment and pulled out 2 ration packs. He handed one to her. She took it. Slowly, eyes scanning the contents. She didn't eat right away. Instead, she asked, "Why are humans kind?" He laughed a little. "Not all of us are, but some try." She opened the pack. Her hands were careful, movements graceful despite her size. Watching her made Micah realize how little he really knew about her people, about her past. So he asked, "Where did you come from before the war?" She looked down. "My planet was green, warm winds, black trees that sang when the sun moved." He leaned forward. "That sounds beautiful." It was. Her voice was quiet. "Then the war came. They didn't want peace. They wanted our skin, our bones. They said we were too strong to be left alone." Micah felt a tightness in his chest. "That's why you don't speak much?" Carol nodded. Speaking became dangerous. Silence was safer. They floated for days. No schedule. No orders. Just stars. Carol began speaking more. Not a lot. Just simple thoughts, memories, little truths. Micah listened. He never pushed. He let her set the pace. He taught her how to pilot the ship, how to read maps, how to use the emergency translator properly. One night, they even laughed. It was a strange, small moment, but powerful. They landed briefly on a mining moon to steal fuel. Micah handled the hacking. Carol stood guard. When a local guard tried to intervene, she stepped in front of Micah and simply stared. The guard backed away without a word. Micah looked up at her afterward. "You didn't even touch him." Her reply was simple. "Didn't need to." There was no more glass between them now. No bars. No watchers. One night, while drifting near an asteroid field, the artificial heat system failed. The air grew cold. Micah began shivering. He wrapped himself in a blanket, but it wasn't enough. Carol watched him quietly. Then she stood. Without a word, she knelt beside him, pulled him close, and wrapped her arms around his body. Her skin was cold, but her core was warm. Very warm. Micah didn't fight it. He leaned into her, surprised at how gentle her hold was. She whispered, "You're too fragile." "And you're too strong," he whispered back. They both smiled. That night, under a blanket of stars, Micah fell asleep for the first time in days with Carell holding him like a shield of warmth, and calmed out for the first time in her life. Carell let herself relax, not because she was safe, but because he was, and to her, that mattered more. He chose her in front of everyone. Day finally came when hiding was no longer possible. Their ship was caught near the edge of a trade route. A patrol vessel picked up a faint energy signal and followed it. Before Micah and Carell could jump again, the patrol surrounded them. They were taken without a fight. Micah was separated, questioned, and warned. Carell was put back in a cage just like before. Cold walls, bright lights, guards with shaking hands and weapons aimed at her head. But this time, she wasn't silent, and this time, she wasn't alone. Micah demanded to speak. The officers refused. He kept speaking. He told them what Carell had done, how she saved him, how she saved others, how she never hurt a single soul who didn't try to harm her. They laughed at him. "You fell for an alien? One of them?" Micah didn't care. "She's not a monster," he said. "She's the bravest person I've ever met." They placed her on trial. It wasn't a real one, just a display for control. A room full of officials and guards who had already decided the outcome. Carell stood in chains at the center. She said nothing until Micah walked into the room. He wasn't supposed to be there. He had broken laws, stolen a ship, escaped with a prisoner. But when the guards tried to stop him, he said something that made everyone freeze. "I claim her." The room went silent. The words had an ancient weight. In some corners of the galaxy, the old code still allowed one being to claim protection over another, not as property, but as bonded guardian. It was rare, almost forgotten, but still legal. Micah stood tall. "She is under my care. I take responsibility for her actions. She is no danger to anyone, not as long as I'm beside her." The officials laughed again. "You want to throw away your life for an alien?" He didn't even blink. "It's not throwing away anything. It's finally doing something right." The commander turned to Carell. "Do you accept his claim?" Everyone expected silence, but Carell lifted her head and said one word strong and clear: "Yes." The air changed. The room no longer held fear. It held tension, disbelief. Carell stepped forward slowly. Her chains rattled, but her voice was steady. "He did not fear me when others did. He listened. He touched my face. He slept in my arms, and I did not harm him. I never will." Micah took another step forward, past the guards. They let him. He stood in front of her, reached up, and placed a hand gently on her arm. "I choose you," he said, "no matter what they do next." She looked down at him, her voice almost breaking. "Then I will protect you forever." They stood there, human and alien together, not by force, not by law, but by choice. The officials didn't know what to do. They argued, shouted, demanded more tests. But the bond had been spoken in front of witnesses. Carell was no longer just an escapee. She was claimed, trusted, and no longer alone. They were both sent away, not to prison, but to a neutral station under watch. But there were no more chains, no more cages. Micah and Carell walked side by side through the corridors, eyes forward. Some stared, some whispered. But no one stopped them. In time, the whispers would fade. In time, people would see what Micah already knew, that love doesn't care about size, shape, or species. It only cares about the heart that dares to choose. And he had chosen her. When no one else dared, when everyone turned away. He stood tall, looked at the world, and said, She is mine. And Carell, the feared alien girl who once sat alone in silence, looked back at the man beside her and said, He is my home.